Welcome back. You're still tuned into Chartbusters on CNBC TV 18. We now have Ankur Rudra, who's the head APAC Telecom and India TMT research at JP Morgan, joining in to discuss his outlook on the IT space. Ankur, hi, welcome to the show. Well, I'm sure it was an extremely busy weekend for you, and you're probably working the phones throughout. So what is your sense in terms of, all the news with regards to H1B and even the clarification and net, the impact, according to you, on, say, frontline IT stocks?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. So it's been, I think, the proclamation clearly on an overall basis prices out H1B visas as a source of labor for the industry on a prospective basis. I think what's been helpful is that it's been clarified, it applies only prospectively, and it's a one-time charge. So I think what we think is likely to happen is a lot of the enterprises and which outsource, and also the vendors themselves, will relook at their sourcing strategies to see if they can change the labor source. Increasingly, they've been depending on H1B visas less and less over the last 5-6 years. If they can further move towards local hiring, if they can also start using a lot more of nearshoring and offshoring. So we think that will happen to an extent to dilute the impact on a going forward basis. In terms of impact, it's very early days. Typically, when we have new changes, there are always some kind of litigation lawsuits against it. So there is some time for this to potentially impact. It's likely to impact the lottery year from next year onwards. But we think that across the board, around 20 to 50% of on-site employees for IT companies are probably impacted, and about 2 to 6% of earnings impact on an annualized basis from F27 to F30. But that's the worst case. We don't think the worst case will happen. Companies will change sourcing strategies.
All right, Ankur, good to have you on the show. The worst case unlikely to play out, and that's the hope. But, the tech space itself has underperformed, in the last 12 months or so, and gradually it was beginning to find favor yet again. Now, what's your view on the sector itself? Because growth could still remain very, very tepid. However, if you look at valuations, if you look at cash flow yields as well, they seem to be, turning a little bit favorable. So how are you placed?
Yes, so I think if you look at the overall IT services sector, there has been two sources of challenges. One is the macro, which has not been helpful thanks to the tariff and the trade uncertainty, which has been impacting demand. And second is potential deflation from an AI perspective, which is probably more medium term. In the short term, we would expect that the macro sort of headwind potentially eases away from calendar year 26 onwards. So this year is likely to be a weak year in any case. But the AI deflation probably plays out maybe for a 2 to 3 year base period and sort of goes away from the base. So when we look at the sector, we look at it in two angles. One is among the larger firms, which have become a lot more value, like you said. Free cash flow yields and dividend yields have become the cheapest they've been in the last 8 to 10 years, which provides a lot more value in sections of the large cap space which do pay out dividends. And on the mid cap side, there's some companies which are growing a lot faster, where these headwinds don't play out so much. So our approach is to have the value large caps which pay out dividends, which look attractive now, and some of the growth-oriented mid-sized companies which can grow meaningfully faster from here on.
Ankur, Q1 actually stood out because there was some amount of revenue and margin deflation. As we get into Q2 and, just a couple of days before the quarter ends, what's your sense in terms of the trend that we could expect? Do you expect that sort of trend to continue into Q2?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things here. One, overall demand environment probably will remain unchanged, in the sense that we will not see any further worsening or any meaningful improvement in the demand scenario. But from a bottom-up perspective, I think when we came into Q1, there was an element of negative surprise that demand was as weak as it was. I think in Q2, that negative surprise is unlikely to be there. And there's been a lot of larger contracts which have been signed on a cost-saving basis by a number of companies in the last 6-9 months. Some of them probably begin to ramp up. So we probably will see bottoming out of demand and growth being a bit more stable from here on. I don't expect things to meaningfully worsen. Having said all of that, signings might get impacted to an extent because of the visa-related uncertainty, but that will be more of a medium-term thing. From a revenue perspective, we think it will probably be similar to what we saw in 1Q, if not slightly better.
Okay.
Okay, Ankur, just turning attention a little bit away from tech, a quick comment on telecom. Do you think that it's going to be a three-player market? And what are the ARPU increases you're working with? 26, 27?
Sure. So on the telecom side, we think that remains a 2.5-player market where the top two companies have invested very meaningfully and hence keep taking share to an extent. The third player is something that the government has indicated multiple times they want to do. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It will be a function of the solution on the AGR front. It's difficult to say at the moment. But our medium-term assumption is we'll have all the three players there. There'll probably be some sort of a solution. From an ARPU perspective, we have assumed a 10 to 15% kind of a tariff increase for the next couple of years, so around 10-ish% for fiscal 26 and around 10 to 15% for fiscal 27. So the change in view is earlier we had every 2 years there would be a tariff increase. Maybe now we might have a smaller tariff increase on an annual basis. That's what we baked in.
Okay, all right, Ankur, a short but effective chat. Wishing you all the best for the remainder of the conference and looking forward to chatting up with you as things do progress.